The Museum of Appalachia. What better way to understand the Appalachian culture and the literature thereof than a visit to the Museum of Appalachia? Appalachia is a region that spans from Canada to Alabama. However, the region is called Appalachia traditionally only includes the central and southern portions of the range. This area encompasses over 205,000 square miles and is home to over 25 million people. Today, the poverty level in Appalachia is higher than it is in most areas, but it is lower than it has been in history. People of early Appalachia lived in little four-room cabins such as you see here. These are very modest cabins. They have what they need. There's not many things that aren't handmade by the person themselves. Appalachian people are very hard, self-reliant. They're good with their hands. In Appalachia, there are four different groups. The first group are the people, the landowners, the politicians, and the businessmen. The second group of people are those hard-working coal miners, loggers, and factory workers, your everyday blue-collar people. The third group of people is the professional group. These are individuals whose family have moved to Appalachia to pursue a profession such as bankers, lawyers, teachers, and ministers. Members of this group are not usually readily accepted by the Appalachians. It takes time for them to be accepted. The fourth group of people are those returning to the Appalachians. This group consists of people who grew up in the mountains but moved away for far better employment and now returning home to their heritage. People that have done that are people such as Dolly Parton, the famous country singer, and famous NASA engineer Homer Hickman. As we come through and pass by the chapel in the Museum of Appalachia, it takes us back to the book Saving Grace. We know this is a far later time frame than what this museum has took place in, but we remember the religion of the Pentecostal religion that they had was one that handled snakes, drunk poison, and also believed in healing by church elders. The book was based on the story of Florida Grace Shepherd, whose father, Reverend Virgil Shepherd, she grew up traveling across Appalachia to the south to hear her dad preach while handling snakes. That is looked upon in today's time as a very dangerous thing, although it still does happen in the Cumberland Gaps up in Kentucky, Virginia, and still in the Appalachian region. I've often wondered how detrimental the things are that happen in that religion. If the snake poison really does kill them, it is a pretty dangerous thing. I believe that those people they are strong in their faith, shouldn't be looked down upon because of what they believe, but they are very strong in their faith, and they believe that God will protect them from the venom. Now we just want to kind of look at what kind of relationship that the Appalachia really does have with the South. According to an article in 2001 by Kent State University Press, Southern Appalachia is that region taking in Western Virginia, Eastern Kentucky, Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, Northern Georgia, and Northern Alabama, proved to be the wild card in Civil War politics and strategy. We know during the Civil War that this area was used by the Union to kind of gather up the Confederates. That they used it as a place to divide the unity of the people in the area and try to bring them on their side. President Abraham Lincoln viewed these supposedly loyalist mountain regions as an ideal base for military operations into vital Confederate territory and a place to drive a wedge into Southern unity. So that pretty much backs that up. The Southern Appalachians, however, proved equally troublesome to the Confederate command. After an initial burst of wartime fervor, many mountains residents grew increasingly resistant and then violently hostile to coercive Confederate mobilization policies. The mountain regions also provided a haven for deserters and increasingly fertile ground for bushwhackers, bandits, and resistance movements. At the same time, the war was particularly cruel to the Southern Appalachians. The residents suffered from economic crisis. They couldn't get the things that they needed. It was a really sad time for most people of this area. Appalachia is a good way of life for many people, even though the media has been first to portray these people as someone we would not want to be. When I think of these individuals, the novel by James Steele, such as River of Earth, and this Appalachian family, there were eight in the family to cook for, two fathers' cousins, Harl and Tib Logan, came with the closing of the mines and did not go away. It is all we can do to keep bread in the children's mouth, Mother told Father. Even if they are your blood kin, we cannot feed them much longer. You'll have to ask them to go. Mother told Father. These lazy louts taking food out of the baby's mouth. What we have won't last forever. Father did not speak for a long time. Then he said simply, I can't turn my kin out. This last statement makes my heart glad. The kind of people that is talking about here in this book are the kind of people that, such as the Appalachians, about the only people. I've done a lot of traveling around the country, and there's no people that are as family oriented as the Appalachian people. It seems to me like, I mean, that's just my opinion. But it showed that this man was willing to put his life and his children's life in the balance, even to the point of starvation, just to be sure that their family, that everyone had food in their mouth. However, that his Appalachian values is what led him to that. He would not turn his back on his family, no matter who they were, his children or his brothers or his cousins or whoever. So as we have found the people of Appalachia, some are from one extreme to the other. Some of them are pretty violent people. Also, we have found people that are dedicated to their home, such as in the story we read earlier. As we think of America today, we find so many Americans that are cruel to our land. They're not patriotic like people back in these days were. They're very unified, even in times of trouble. They would find a way to unify themselves. The leaders in that day would find a way to unify the country. We found that people from our region are contemplating killing Americans, their kindred, because of religious beliefs. Religion is a freedom that we do have according to our constitutional rights. And these people of Appalachia, they stick close to their values, their rights they have as Americans. But also, we have found these people to be very loving, kind people for the most part. They're in a very remote area, very beautiful area. It's a very fertile land. The people back then in the 1800s, when the Appalachians, well, even back into the 1700s, the people were very dependent on their farmland. Very fertile soil in this area. A lot of tobacco grown as a main crop. A lot of corn. Different types of livestock raised, such as sheep, cattle, goats. Cattle were used for dairy. Goats were used for dairy. They made their own butter back then. There's a lot of several things that took place that they done themselves without stuff we have to do today. When we look at Appalachian, we often think of the psychology. It plays a significant role in the behavior and actions made by people that sometimes we don't understand. According to a source from David Buss, Martin Daly, Margot Wilson, Lita Kosmides, and John Tooby, whom of which are all scientists and contributing to the following theory. All these experts say that there are evolutionary bases of behavior in humans and animals. They also say that behavior patterns have evolved to solve adaptive problems. Natural selection favors behaviors that enhance reproductive success. Appalachian settlers faced real uncertainty and trials in the early days, which upon they built their foundation. They had to give away at times almost all they had to ensure that every single dependent, sometimes not even immediate family and neighbors, were always taking care of their own. This theory also states that we became adapted to face situations which we are faced. We know that back then, and a lot of times people, as we were mentioned earlier about the psychology of the Appalachian people, we knew it played a significant role in the development of our culture in southern Appalachia. That being said, we'll look at one of the largest scale movements in America, the Civil War. During this time in Appalachia, our crops wouldn't grow, our slaves were being threatened and taken away, our houses were without men and boys to tend the fields and crops, and our families were torn apart. In poverty, our guys would give up to his neighbors. In times of famine and when food was non-existent, he gave what little he had. These examples showcase two experimental values known as a general theory and previously stated evolutionary theory. The humanistic theory says that we are free beings, therefore we are capable of making our own choices. The Appalachian natives had to adapt and overcome for survival, even when it sometimes meant they had to sacrifice food out of their own hands to feed the people that were afraid to reach in for a handout. That a lot of Appalachian people, they would not take handouts. They took what someone would give them. They couldn't just say, here, you need this, take it. They would just give it to them as a gift. That's the heart of the Appalachian people. Appalachia has a lot of times been known for an area that is very poor and very uneducated. That is in fact not the case. But however, the people that are poor in this area, it is a very serious situation. But we have organizations such as the Samaritan's Purse, the Appalachian Regional Ministry, and the USDA Strike Force Initiative. The religious ministry that comes and help in Appalachia, they focus on the faith of the people. They focus on the churchgoers. In Appalachia, there's several Christian people, but only about 30% of those actually attend a church, according to the Appalachian Regional Ministry. There are, as we mentioned earlier, different types of faith in this area, but as long as somebody is as we mentioned, the USDA Strike Force Initiative takes place in over 100 counties in this area spanning the Appalachian region, knowing that East Tennessee and our home county, Granger County, is in this area. But it focuses on the need of the people through USDA programs, cost share programs, priority programs that they have in order to help them. There are also several famous authors from the Appalachian area, also poets. Some of the authors are John Eel, that wrote The Landbreakers, James Dickey. He was a poet and also the author of Deliverance, which was a famous movie that included Burt Reynolds. Charles Fraser, the author of Cold Mountain, which was based in Civil War times. Cormac McCarthy wrote the book Child of God. Also another author was Dorothy Allison. All these authors are very good, prominent authors that knew their work and their Appalachian heritage. Throughout this video, I hope you have been able to gain a better understanding of the Appalachian culture. I know it's something that by coming here that I really kind of understood more. It is a very chilly day. It's 26 degrees here, so we appreciate you taking the time to listen to our video, and